because of the tears, because of the emotions that he's putting out. Don't be taken victim to that. That's not necessarily the truth. And you also notice, too, when asked the question, the one important question that everyone wants to know is, did you kill your wife? He immediately diverts his eyes, looks down to the ground, and says, no. And he couldn't even look, as Dave was pointing out before. He can't look forward because they're almost afraid that you can look in and see that lie that they've just told.
If he were telling the truth, he would have that eye contact. He would be saying, absolutely not. No. No way.
And just what you did right there without even planning is exactly what you would do as a truthful person. If I ask you, Stan, did you murder your wife? Did you sell drugs? Did you rob? You'd be absolutely adamant about it. No, I didn't. You'd be screaming at you, want the world to know that. What do you say? No. As he looks away and diverts, almost does that inappropriate little tiny smile and even that little laughter, that no, as he turns his head away. That's not what a truthful person would do. A truthful person wants to scream it out, wants the world to know that they've not committed a crime. Had a little bit of a hard time with that, obviously.
Dave, before we get to you, I want to follow up with this. Is there a specific question that you can ask a person that you're interrogating or interviewing that you can kind of draw that physical, that emotional response out?
Absolutely. In fact, it's what I refer to as the three questions of the verbal lie detector. And the verbal lie detector is very simply that. One of them was asked there. Did you do it? To see what their response is. A person's not being truthful, as if we had watched that tape of the female that did not make that bank deposit. Instead of giving the direct no or yes response to what we call a bipolar question, instead she just kind of, man, why would I do something like that? I'm not that kind of a person. Only a crazy person would make up a story like that. These are what we refer to as evasive verbal responses. Instead of giving a yes or no, as you would do, when I asked you, did you murder your wife? Did you sell drugs? Did you break in? You would say, absolutely not, that I didn't do that. So the three questions of the verbal lie detector is, did you do it? Have you absolutely told me everything? And then the big one is, has everything you told me been the absolute truth? And it's almost impossible for them to answer all three of those questions that they're lying. You will see them. They spit and they sputter and they bring their hands up. They start coughing. The inappropriate smiles or the laughter that they do, trying to expel some of that fight or flight that they're going through.
Okay. Dave, your turn.
He had so much that I would like to add to it. I wish we had more time. And I want to start right at the beginning and probably work a little bit backwards. One of my favorite things is people laughing inappropriately. Now, it didn't happen here, but I think what Gary said was very important. I can't tell you how many times doing an investigation out on the street, I'll simply ask this question. Do you have any drugs in your car? And here's what I'll hear. Oh, no. Well, what's so funny about that? That nervous laughter, what's that all about? The inappropriate smiles when things should be serious. It should be, no, absolutely not. Very firm, very immediate. But they needed to buy themselves time. And they're going to have the Freudian slips, the different comments that they shouldn't be making, such as what Scott Peterson did here, that they pointed out in the video. He started to say one way in past tense and all of a sudden brought it back into present tense. That's very common. What goes through the mind comes out the mouth eventually, and I think Gary's real well versed on that. He was written about that particular topic, and that's so true. I hear that all the time. People will talk and talk and talk, but not answer the question. And I've said that a couple of times today because that's what we need to pay attention to. That's what Scott was doing here in this one. I also found it fascinating. He was so close. Did you notice, and I don't know if other people, his elbows stayed almost in the entire time. The way his eyes, he couldn't control the eyes, and most people can't, is what he was doing with the eyes wouldn't let certain things happen. Instead of going into recollection at times, he's going into what we call construction with the eye accessing, and that's making stuff up. I mean, that's what construction's all about. Most of us would be emotional if it was our spouse, watching what should be really happening. We'd be internalizing by looking into ourselves, remembering all the good things and talking about that, not saying, well, if she was, in the past says, but rather, well, when she comes back, and that would be very, very important on this.
Well, he had a number of people convinced, so he thought. He had his half-sister, Ann Bird, kind of bought into his lies. Matter of fact, also harbored him at home for a while until things collapsed there. But going back to Scott Peterson, it seems like there was a kind of a split in the country. Maybe the male people kind of bought into him and thought perhaps there's a chance, but yet the female population, I know my wife said, he's lying right off the bat.
Isn't that interesting? We talk about the President Clinton thing and how he divided the country, even in families. My own family, for instance. My wife said, well, what he did is not so bad, I guess. And here I'm saying, but wait a minute, it's not so important what he's done. It's what he did as a result of that. So he divided countries. I mean, he divided families, as we talked about. It's interesting how some people read things differently. It depends on your attitude.
Right.
My wife truly wanted to believe him. Just like you said, Scott Peterson's sister bought into what he was saying. She went in there with that attitude. She went in with the attitude of, he's my brother. and he's telling me the truth, and there's nothing else. I mean, it was cut and dry for her. Whereas we have to go in as neutral, as hard as that sometimes is, to evaluate and assess this guy in every way that we possibly can to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's telling me the truth. But a lot of times is, what is it true of? Is it possible he committed the crime, and yet he just doesn't lie about it? And that's what if we have time, we'll talk about lies of omission.
Pretty interesting. Well, we're going to take a 2-minute break right now, and when we come back, we're going to test your listening skills.
This is what it's like to be hooked on meth. Paranoid. Hallucinating. Schizophrenic. Sweet dreams.
What would you do if a stranger talked to you?
I wouldn't talk to them because it might be bad.
Very good. And what would you tell someone playing with matches?
I would tell them not to play with them because they might start a fire.
Wow. How come you know so much?
My mommy told me.
Oh, and what did your mommy tell you about drugs?
Your children are listening. Are you talking?
Yeah. What's up? It's Chuck D. And in the game, there's winners and losers. If you think that you're better with drugs, then you're on the losing side. And that's for real. I ain't never seen a winner in the drug game. So we want to make sure that the next generation ain't generation wreck. Don't be a loser. Drug addiction, nobody wins. So you make sure that you give drugs no love. Peace. I change the people around me. Yeah. I change the people around me.
What would you say if your child were approaching something this dangerous? And yet, with something as damaging as drugs, millions of parents say nothing. Say something.